You're listening to The Lead on News 24 with your host, broadcast journalist Graeme Robenheimer.
Are they two sides of a similar coin? Well, parliamentarians have spent the past few weeks grilling the rather cryptic backgrounds of both investigator Paul O'Sullivan and information peddler Brown Mogotsi. The pair, in their own peculiar ways, have found themselves embroiled or alleged to be in proximity to all sorts of shadowy dealings with top criminal justice authority figures that it's becoming nigh impossible to believe who's telling the truth here. Just ask our senior parliamentary reporter, Gerber, our guest, next.
MPs have called O'Sullivan called Mogotsi the black Paul O'Sullivan. He was not happy about that. But there's a lot of comparisons, this level of arrogance, like this involvement, not direct involvement, but always having a finger in a pie somewhere in the criminal justice system, and, not complete honesty about their past and allegations of involvement in intelligence operations. And so it's I can understand why people would make that comparison.
Later in the show, we recalled the deadly 1862 Birkenhead ship collision with On This Day in South African History, our regular segment.
New episodes of The Lead air Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m.
In Rauby's Pointless Braai quiz, the question is, which side do the Proteas face next in their triumphant, touch wood, run of runs in the T20 Cricket World Cup? I'll give you the answer at the end of the show. My name's Graeme Robenheimer. This is The Lead, and this is the South African story. Moving to our top story today, well, he's often one of the final journalists to leave the newsroom in Cape Town during the weeknights, as members of Parliament keep him up with all the politically outlandish things they get to say at the ongoing ad-hoc committee looking into allegations that criminals have captured the criminal justice system. It's none other than our parliamentary correspondent. It's Gerber. Hoe gaan het, Jan?
Right, but tired. This committee has been keeping me busy again this week.
Look, it's been mental, and the whole purposes of today's discussion, Jan, I think, is to just catch those people up who've maybe seen some of the headlines surrounding Paul O'Sullivan, this very controversial forensic investigator, as well as Brown Mogotsi, this alleged information peddler, although both of these gentlemen, in contrast, have worn so many different hats over the years, it's difficult to really peg who they are.
And that's the main thing about both of them before this committee, because what are they going to do with this testimony? For instance, Brown Mogotsi, who appeared on Tuesday, he claims to be a contact agent for crime intelligence, but is he really? None of the MPs seem to believe that. And then there's this allegations that Paul O'Sullivan is a spy, but he denies. And as the members reminded him this morning, a spy would. And it emerged when he appeared before that he worked for British military intelligence. He's of Irish descent, but he worked for British military intelligence against the IRA in the 70s. So, there's a lot of, who are these guys? What are they doing? Why are these people involved in our politics and in our police? And, it's a bit of a mess, to be honest.
Let's try and take it from the start, and we can get into all of these things as we go. When MPs met in early January and helped me out here, they sort of wanted to chart the year ahead. Of course, we've had the State of the Nation address as well as budget, the usual sort of beginning of the year things that take up a lot of the public and MPs' times. But in the background, the ad hoc committee has still been doing its work, and it's sort of rushing now, right, to try and get a lot of the big names through the door so that they can hear their testimony.
Yes, they had to extend the deadline once again. It's now the end of March, so time is starting to time ran out already. They should have been done last week already, but they couldn't because of the normal parliamentary work that has to be done. But now they really need to get going. They had issues with both O'Sullivan and Mogotsi. Both didn't initially want to appear in person. O'Sullivan said he's abroad and he's safety fears. Mogotsi also claimed he had safety fears. He wanted Parliament to pay for his own security.
Yeah, crazy.
So eventually Parliament got him to come, for what it's worth. They asked the Speaker to subpoena them. The Speaker had some questions. They had to follow the processes properly. In the end, it wasn't necessary to subpoena them. But the committee was like, we want them subpoenaed. But before the whole process went through, they decided to come in any case.
Right, and just a reminder for people who might still be confused at this point, the ad hoc committee is obviously running this parallel process to the main Madlanga Commission, which is happening in central Pretoria. Now, this committee, let's begin with Paul O'Sullivan before we get to Mogotsi, and we know that O'Sullivan's been back in the hot seat today, but let's just catch people up for the previous testimony that he gave. Let's start with those allegations that he might be this spy operating within the South African context. How did he come to South Africa has been the big question MPs want him to answer.
And by his telling, he was involved in property development in the 1980s. He had a few properties in South Africa, and eventually he came here in 1989 as a person of independent means, as he put it. And then I think in 1995 he got his citizenship, so he's got a dual citizenship. There's been questions in the committee like, why would someone come to apartheid South Africa, especially someone with intelligence background? Especially
during the height of the state of emergency of the 80s?
Exactly. I haven't really gotten a good answer on that. He's been very super vague on things about his background. In the previous time he appeared before Parliament, if leader Julius Malema really knuckled down in that stuff and did a good job. This morning, she got cut short with O'Sullivan leaving the proceedings, and because, also MPs wasted a lot of time, but the evidence leader, Mkize, was also starting to really knuckle down on his qualifications. He claimed he was a qualified electric engineer. He was qualified as an electric technician, which is, a difference. There's these questions about his background, which he was super cagey about, and that hasn't been cleared up. And that fits into this question, what was he doing in South Africa? Then he got involved when he was here as a police reservist, eventually at what he calls the border police at the airport. Then he worked at AXA. And all the while he was somewhere in the periphery of the criminal justice system.
So fascinating. Quickly on his previous tenure within the 1970s, he was a counter-surveillance agent,
yes,
spying on spies, as he puts it.
Well, as he put it, he was not a spy. He was conducting counter-intelligence and surveillance. I assumed, the way I understood it was they looked at what the IRA operatives were doing.
But surely that's spying. That's just described spying, mate.
Yes, that's I think somebody in the committee also put it to him like that. But to me, maybe I'm just a civilian, what do I know? But if you're involved in intelligence work, you're spying. But so obviously you can understand in the South African context that people won't go around saying, "Oh, no, he used to be a spy," But it's dodgy. Also, what fascinates me is he says he's of Irish descent, but he spied for the British on the IRA. Now, not going into the politics of that, but for me it's just odd that because Irish people typically are not they're not too fond of the English.
Yeah, and we don't have time, I think, to go into the Troubles history at this time. Cue you two to play in the background. Let's go back to the Malema drama, and you've pointed out that Malema did a really good job of hammering O'Sullivan with really pertinent and relevant questioning. But then O'Sullivan fired back, claiming that certain members of this committee, along party political lines, had been in cahoots with dodgy crime intelligence officials regarding the abuse or the looting of the slush fund, which has been an ongoing issue for a really long time. That's, he's come into the room and he's not making friends.
No, he definitely doesn't make any friends today. Or his previous appearances. No, he's been saying that stuff actually outside of Parliament before coming to Parliament. He accuses the MK, the EFF, and Action SA didn't provide any substantiation, which is a recurring theme in this whole inquiry. But my impression is also that some MPs got information from certain officers probably in crime intelligence or in police. I don't think there's something inherently wrong with getting information to do their jobs. If they're serving those agendas, then it's a different story. But I don't think you can say it at this stage. I do get the impression that a certain party is very much in favour of a certain senior official. But at this stage, I can only say that it's an impression.
Sure.
And it will become clearer when the committee starts debating its report.
Right, which hopefully they'll get to soon. Look, there's some housekeeping matters that we'll get to in the meanwhile. And we know that Paul O'Sullivan had to postpone his previous testimony before this committee because he had been reported to have been in pain at the time. He was his spinal pain, and apparently this was connected to an apparent attempt on his life. Yeah. Let's move to Brown Mogotsi, right? Okay. Another professional information peddler.
Yes.
Parliament had to bring him in as well. And in your latest piece, you highlight something that Mogotsi has since cleared up, that what he told the Madlanga Commission. Yeah. And this was this apparent, whole concocted story of that KZN top cop, Mhlanhla Mkhwanazi, and the Zulu king, Misuzulu Kwazelatini, were CIA agents for the US, and it's all got to do with this apparent claim that Israel and the US was concerned that South Africa would stop sending coal to Israel. I mean, what a conspiracy.
I mean, that was not the only fantastical story he told the committee, but that's the one that he retracted. Again, no substantiation, and that's why he eventually had to retract it, because the committee was like, but you're just saying this and you can't prove it. So according to him, the CIA was concerned that when South Africa opened the case at the ICJ, the genocide case, that they would stop sending coal to Israel, and that the Richards Bay Harbour is like the terminal for the coal to go to Israel. And so Mkhwanazi
used the PKTT to harass members of the Zulu household, royal household.
The royal household.
Because apparently there was some other plan to...
Yes, they wanted a Chinese company to use that terminal. It's very convoluted. And
highly.
And, there's some holes in the story, which the MPs proceeded to poke those holes. They, I must say, I've been very critical of the MPs, but they did quite well on Tuesday with Mogotsi. So the DA members pointed out that, the coal shipments kept going. The ones that actually Diane called Barnard and Damien Klopper, got stats like, the exports increased over time. So, there goes that story. No substantiation for its claims against Mkhwanazi. And I think it was ANC MP Kusela Diku who pointed out that Mkhwanazi was actually concerned about the police deployment at Richards Bay. So the story fell apart, and he was like a bit deflated, apologizing to Mkhwanazi and the king.
And his body language also before parliamentarians, he was rubbing his face a lot.
So they pushed back on a lot of the things, and especially about his claims of being a contact agent for crime intelligence. I don't think any member in that committee believes it. So when they pushed back on that, he would rub his face or hide a smile, and he referred everything to his handler, who we now know handed in a secret note to appear to the Madlanga Commission yesterday. I must say, if I were his handler, I would do the same. If he is his handler, like one of the crazy stories that he told in relation to the whole CIA thing.
So fascinating, and I want to go with you on this journey. Mogotsi, at the behest or the direction of the late former police minister Mogotsi and Mthethwa, who then became the French ambassador, tells him to go to Kenya. Why?
To speak to this random person called George, who might give him information on this CIA operation. But so Mogotsi paid mostly out of his own pocket, went with another person he refused to name, but this guy didn't give him any information. Now, and then Malema once again pointed out that if you're a crime intelligence operative, you can't go and conduct investigations in Kenya, So he admitted to breaking the law if he was, and he didn't know about that law. I didn't put it in my story, but Malema asked him what. Mentioned the name of the SSA headquarters, and he never heard of it. And he clearly didn't know much about intelligence operations. He's probably an informer at best.
Right. Things got a bit dark because Mogotsi also admitted to MPs that he killed someone.
Yes, and mysteriously, the case just disappeared. According to him, he pleaded. He was charged and he pleaded, and then the case was dropped. And Glenys Breitenbach, the DA MP who's been prosecutor for years that's not how it worked. Mogotsi just didn't know. He was also, I think it was something like 16 or 17 other charges against him, a lot of it relating to assault with intent to do grievous bodily harm. I think 6 of those cases. Nothing happened of it. A fraud case as well. So, there's and 2 members actually called him by mistake. Cleaners and ANC MP Sokanyele referred to him as Mr. Matlala. And there's this comparison because Matlala also had this even a longer list of cases against him that just went nowhere.
For sure. It's just so wild because when you look back to Paul O'Sullivan, I mean, O'Sullivan's also had all these sort of charges and counter charges with all these high-ranking SAPS past and present figures, right?
Yeah. O'Sullivan, as he did just say, he said all those charges were trumped up. It was the crooks trying to get him out of the way. Mogotsi didn't really explain where these charges went and why they just disappeared.
But Paul's been back in the hot seat today, as many of our lead listeners are understanding now, as we've been on a break, and he's been rushing to, as we understand it, meet his flight booking,
yes.
And he was constantly telling MPs, you need to wrap up today. But, he's also admitted to having, past relationships with not only Jackie Salebi, but Sinead Moti. Various names came up. And today it wasn't really Malema going in for the kill, so to speak, but it was David Scorsana with the Mkhonto Wesizwe party that really had a heated tiff with O'Sullivan in Parliament.
Yes. Basically accusing him of a spy. O'Sullivan got really upset being called a spy. It wasn't a very... it didn't really help the evidence before the committee. I wouldn't, call Mr. Scorsana a very clever man. So it was mostly shouting, really.
He didn't like the fact that O'Sullivan called Jacob Zuma a criminal.
Oh, that was, well, that was another MK MP. It was MK MP, was Shongwe. He was also upset that he didn't refer to Jacob Zuma as His Excellency. So O'Sullivan, and from the start it was said that he had to leave at 1, and then the MPs wasted time with crap like that. It took the chairperson 15 minutes to greet all the MPs and everybody and deal with the people who will be absent or leave earlier. 15 minutes. And then, the MPs were just a lot of bluster. And now the evidence leader at the end must try and, who was really good. She was really picking up where Malema left off at the previous, zooming in on Sullivan's qualifications or lack thereof. But, he just left 15 minutes past 1.
What I picked up throughout Paul O'Sullivan's evidence, if we want to call it that, before the committee is that not only has he worn many, many hats, but he's also denied many claims as being false accusations. Yeah. One of them being the Pala Pala saga. Apparently, the claim goes that he was assisting the president in trying to track down the people who had stolen the money from the famous couch. But he claims not so, right?
Yeah. That claim was made by Arthur Fraser, the former SSA boss during Zuma's term, who Ramaphosa rued that every day that he kept him on in his administration as the correctional services boss. He deposed that affidavit which blew the whole Pala Pala thing open. And one of his things he said was that O'Sullivan was somehow involved in tracking down the thieves who stole the money out of the couch.
Right.
I haven't seen any substantiation of that either.
Are you, Jan Gerber, following all of this closely as our senior parliamentary correspondent for News 24? Do you feel like all of this has really been a whole lot of nothing?
I am concerned about what product the committee will come up with because there's so many contradictions and, who's talking the truth, what do you go on? I'm not sure if they've got the quality of information that the Mthethwa Commission is getting. I think part of the problem is that some of the MPs are not up to the task. They're not forensic trained people, but some of them are not helping matters.
They've been focused on these comments that Paul O'Sullivan, for example, made in media interviews about licking his backside and all sorts of stuff.
He used the Irish phrase "poke my hon," which means kiss my ass. It's also where...
This was in a media interview, right?
with NCA. So Scorsana went mental about that. I get it. They are members of parliament and they should, be treated with respect, but they must also act, accordingly. They should act like honourable members. Just being a member doesn't mean you're automatically an honourable member. You must, act accordingly. That whole show didn't help this committee getting closer to the truth in any way. My suspicion is that O'Sullivan, even though he's involved in all kinds of dodginess, and you have to ask, why is this dude circling the South African criminal justice system the whole time? But it appears to me to be he's like a distraction from the main thing, and the main thing is the internal contest in the police about access to that slush fund. So, and he's like the perfect distraction for MPs because he's arrogant, he's a white guy, he's from England. Of course they're going to go after him.
Yeah, right. Let's quickly do some housekeeping before you have to go back to the circus that is this ad hoc committee, which I know you've described it in the past as being. The MKP wanted Cyril Ramaphosa, our president of the Republic of South Africa, to come to the committee to account, to be there in person, to take MPs' questions. And of course, the senior ANC MPs in this very committee said, we don't need to have that happen.
The chief whip of the ANC, Mdumiseni Ntuli, said, he's the sitting president, we can't treat him the same. Which is, I almost swore just now, but that's rubbish. He's accountable just like anybody else.
Absolutely.
And he's got a lot to explain. I mean, first of all, Mchunu acted as his representative. That's how all ministers act. But there was also, according to Mchunu, Ramaphosa was happy that he disbanded the PKTT. Other people said the president was happy with the PKTT. He needs to clear that up. If I were an MP, I would ask him, why was Bheki Cele, the guy who chommies with Kat Matlala, your police minister for years, while the crime figures went up and everybody was saying this guy's not doing a good job, and it was clearly that he was involved in the factional battles in the police. Why did you keep this guy? That's a fair question, I think. But ANC, no. It's an old ANC thing. They just protect their president. That's, I would say, one of the big reasons why we're in this mess. But in any case, what else is new?
I mean, I totally agree. And I think let's just end here. I mean, we still expected to hear a couple of more witnesses, right? One of them being former national top cop, Khomotso Pakhlane.
Yes.
How that links to Paul O'Sullivan is because there's an allegation that at a Braai that O'Sullivan led, he tried to corral members to get rid of Pakhlane so that Robert McBride, the former IPID head, which is the police watchdog, it's the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, so that he could replace Pakhlane as SAPS head or National Commissioner. So we'll probably hear from Pakhlane next on that allegation, right?
Yes. So this will be also Pakhlane's second time before the committee. Look, he's charged of fraud and corruption, I believe, and when he appeared before the committee the previous time, he just went after everybody, trying to tarnish his accusers and trying to run his defense in this committee. And, this is not the place, I think, but, it's a bit problematic, really. I don't think it adds to the work of the committee. But again, it speaks to the corruption in the police and the ulterior motives of top cops and access to funds and etc.
Mogotsi and O'Sullivan seem finally ending off like two sides of one coin. And we said this before we went into our chat, and MPs have alluded to this theory as so much.
Some MPs have called O'Sullivan called Mogotsi the black Paul O'Sullivan. He was not happy about that. But there's a lot of comparisons, there's this level of arrogance, like this involvement, not direct involvement, but always having a finger in a pie somewhere in the criminal justice system, and, not complete honesty about their past and allegations of involvement in intelligence operations. And so listen, I can understand why people would make that comparison.
I know you're a big Fokofpolitika fan, like me and my wife are, but I love Funko Katal just as much, and I've watched many of their live gigs, and I thought I'd read you the English translation just to end off our discussion, because I thought it was pertinent, because I can't play the song, it will be a copyright strike.
Yes.
This is a land of colors and sounds. This is a land of the love of alcohol. You're not me and I'm jealous of you. This is a country of corruption and thank God. This is a land of alcohol. You're not me and I am jealous of you.
Ja, dis another one. I'll say it in Afrikaans. Ek wil nie paranoia kweek nie, maar iemand doen dit klaar. Another van Coca-Cola lyric, which I thought is quite apt.
And if you had to translate it to English?
I don't want to sow paranoia, but somebody's doing it already. We should also actually quote Pogue lyrics today, because Paul O'Sullivan referred to Pogue Mahon, but where the Pogue's got the name, but let's leave it at that.
I mean, this is all references to some of the greatest punk music that's ever come out. And I love him. He's Jan Gerber. He's one of my favorite people here in the News 24 newsroom here on the Cape Town foreshore. And like him, we're both punks and we love punk music. Thanks so much for your time today, Braai.
Cool. Cheers, man.
And finally,
ending off now with On This Day in South African History. This is the 26th of February, 1852. Goodness, that's a long time ago. The British troop ship Birkenhead ran aground on a reef off Danger Point near present-day Gaans Bay in the Western Cape, and the vessel, carrying some 638 passengers at the time, including many troops bound for the 8th Frontier War, struck the rocks after sailing too close to the treacherous coastline. Now, with only 2 lifeboats on board, the women and children were evacuated first, while soldiers reportedly stood firm on deck. This act of discipline later became known as the quote-unquote Birkenhead Drill. Of those on board, 445 men lost their lives. This disaster became one of the most infamous maritime tragedies in South African history, remembered for the extraordinary gallantry shown in the face of death. I also think there's a pub called the Birkenhead somewhere. And now for the answer to Rauby's pointless Braai quiz this Thursday. Which side do the Proteas face next in their triumphant touch wood run of runs in the T20 Cricket World Cup? Well, the answer is Zimbabwe, and they'd better be prepared this coming Sunday. The Proteas are flying high right now with a massive win over not only hosts India, but the West Indies as well. South Africa won their latest bout against the West Indies with 9 wickets in hand and some 23 balls left to spare. This Protea fire is certainly raging. Have a fantastic weekend. Keep safe. Hit like, follow, and subscribe. In the meantime, if you'd like to hear more from the lead, we appreciate all of your support. Our job here is to bring you credible news first. A special thanks to Simon Sonicus, our deputy multimedia editor, who's had such a key, important ear for this podcast from almost day one. We really appreciate you always quality controlling and making sure that our facts are checked. And also a very special thanks to multimedia editor Nokuthula Manyati as well, for being there for the lead from day one and ensuring everything that you hear has been up to standard with only the best pictures to come with it. My name's Graeme Rauby, and so long as there's trusted news first, we'll always have the lead.